Is there a pledge
So,
is there a pledge of allegiance to Hong Kong or to China?
no, not really.
Well, that's because America is God's chosen nation, so it makes sense that they wouldn't have when you think
It,
about it.
it seemed like that, man. Like I would go into like churches and like I remember going to like this pastor's office. He had like a life size cutout of like George W. Bush, like dressed up, like dressed as Uncle Sam. Dressed as Uncle Sam.
Did he make you pledge allegiance to that?
No, he did not. But
Hey everybody, we're back with another episode of Growing Up Christian. I'm Sam.
I'm Casey.
And I'm April, back again with some stellar dating advice.
Third time. This is the third time, not counting being a guest. So
Right.
it's you're officially, even though you're married to one of the hosts, you're officially a friend of the show.
Oh, perfect. I feel really honored. It's not because of any reason. Just, you guys think I'm very cool.
The coolest.
So this past weekend, I was at a show that was very meaningful to me. It was the Newfound Glory Sticks and Stones 20-year anniversary tour. They were doing like this 5-day like festival across, I don't know, a few different states, but they came to my area. It was like an outdoor festival. And I've talked about that album a little bit, but that was like one of those, I bought it when I was like 13, and I used to like, I have like super vivid memories of, I would like volunteer to mow my parents' lawn at that age because we had a riding lawnmower, and I would just like we had a big yard too. So I would just like put that in and just listen to it nonstop, like back to back all the time. And if Spotify, you know how Spotify gives you your like yearly recap?
Yeah.
Like I would have loved to have known what my like recap would have been on that album. But so they played the entire album front to back, and that's also a weird feeling when you're at like a 20-year anniversary tour for something. Like that feels like officially fucking old. But I ran into like a bunch of people throughout the day that I knew, and one of the guys I ran into, we were talking, and he mentioned listening to the podcast and stuff, and he was like, man, I've it's been cool. Like I really like listening to it. One of the reasons I really like listening to it is I disagree with just about everything you say. But it was funny to me.
You in particular?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Me in particular. Just coming from like a more lefty point of view, I guess is more what it comes down to. But what I liked about it is that he finds it entertaining even when he finds it disagreeable. And I think that is what I find to be probably one of the better compliments we've got. Like you don't even have to agree with us to like listening to it. And I appreciate that more than you know.
Yeah. Shout out to my fellow milquetoast conservatives.
Yeah. It was cool. It was fun to run into people. I don't go to shows much these days. So especially, it wasn't just a show. It was like, it started at 3, it was like, there's like 9 bands or something like that on it. So,
whoa.
But yeah, I mean, it was cool. A lot of them have been bands for a long, like Newfound Glory has been around forever. So they just asked a bunch of bands that they like to do the tour. So Piebald was up on it. I don't know if you guys knew Piebald, but
know the name.
They've been around for fucking forever. Bayside, 4 Year Strong.
Oh yeah, I know who they are.
Heavy hitters. It was a really fun time.
Yeah, that's like the emo high school days. All those bands.
Yep. Yeah.
Oops.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So April is back again to talk about another really cool book. So the past 2 times that you've been on for an intro, we've talked about a book called Dateable.
Yep.
And it's just a bunch of great dating advice from a couple of people who are fluent in relationship science.
Yeah. Oh, they have it all down. And particularly of the James Dobson dating theory.
Yeah, but it's for teens, so it's cool.
Yeah,
You know,
they have cool things to say.
Yeah. So yeah, the Dateable book. I actually have to state an update from the last time that I was on here, because last time I said that my parents bought that book for me, the Dateable book, but I was looking in my diaries from high school because that's a normal thing to do, and I found that I actually bought the book for myself. So I inflicted this, upon
Yeah.
myself. So sorry, parents. I
You sought wisdom. They trained up a child in the way that she should go.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you learn about this book, if you can recall? Did you learn about this book and think and hear some positive reviews and think that you needed to buy it, or were you at a bookstore? Okay, I mean, you already have it. Or were you at a bookstore and you saw it and you're like, oh, I think I need.
It was number 2.
Okay,
it was the latter. I was on a college for a weekend trip to Houghton College in New York. One of my friends went with me. She ended up actually going there, but I went there, and in their school
Christian
bookstore.
College?
Yes, it's a Christian college. They actually did not have a dress code, which I thought was interesting.
Whoa, those liberal pieces of shit.
I know.
My
mom was like, maybe because it's so cold up there, they don't need to have a dress code. Like, oh my gosh.
You can put a collar under your sweater. Come on.
Exactly. But yeah, I saw it. I wrote that in my diary too. I wrote everything down because I just did that. and
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. I wrote it. What did I write? I was just like, I found this book in the bookstore called Dateable and stuff, and it seemed really good. I started reading it in the store. And then later I went online and I ordered it from some online bookstore, and then I read it. However, I think I'd said before, but if anyone missed it, I used to write really long lists of what I wanted in a future partner. And after the book, I was like, I don't think I'm going to write really long lists anymore, because there's no person that can live up to the fantasy person you have in your head. So I'm just going to be a Christian and something. I forget what else. It was like 3 things. I'm like, oh, wow. So emotional maturity in one area of my life when I was 15, I guess.
You definitely flew very close to incel territory there, though. You could have taken that and gone a completely the other direction.
Yeah, I could have.
Nobody will live up to this. I guess I'm marrying Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
Kate,
it's
I was going to ask what it's been like for you, Casey, knowing that you can't live up to her former fantasies about Jesus.
Oh my gosh. No. Yeah.
Well, just got to rewrite the list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've looked at my former lists, and I don't know. I think I did pretty well, actually.
Yeah. And for the things you didn't, it's like taking the stickers off the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Can make it work.
Solid, like, 65 out of 100?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably about right.
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, if you're going to write 100 things down of what you want, I mean, I'd say 40 is pretty good, given,
well, someday I ought to break that list out. And say,
yeah, that'd be fun.
Some of the things are kind of, I don't know, kind of weird, very specific.
Number 1 on the list had to be like, has a passion for the Lord or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was like on fire for God, missions minded, because I was fresh off a mission trip.
Oh, so yeah.
There was that whole thing. And then
was there anything about facial hair? Did you want a mustache, a goatee? What was your...
I would say no facial hair.
Oh, sweet. You nailed it, Casey. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, worked out.
Yeah. I didn't like anyone who looked like a lot older than me. I wanted like around my age. So no one I knew had beards when they were 15. So
and Casey still looks around your age when you were that age. So that's also a win.
Yeah, one day they're gonna think that he's my child or something when we're out and about.
It's like a little chubby cherub.
I mean, it doesn't help that you put him in the little seat in the carriage every time you go grocery shopping. If you stop doing that, maybe
just asking for it.
If I sat in that seat, you'd have to call the fire department to get my thighs out of that
fucking jaws of life. They have to crack those bitches out.
Like you have to get like one of those seat and a half chairs.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you used the ones with the little car in the front, and he just
Oh, yeah, you're talking about
he
a book seat.
Flintstoneed it to
Like
the
a-
grocery store.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so in comparison to Dateable, what
Okay.
tell us what this book is and what's different about it.
All right. So this book is called Marryable. The companion to Dateable. So this is kind of like the Dateable book, but for people who are searching for a marriage partner. And it says the subtitle is "Taking the Desperate Out of Dating."
I find that this is so weird because like Dateable was about finding a marriage partner, but
Well,
maybe this is for people who dated but didn't read that book and they want to get married, so you have to read this book.
I think it's for both. Well, the Dateable book, the whole premise of the Dateable book is it's not going to last. So
Yeah.
so
Don't
why bother? Yeah. Which is weird that I got that other mindset out of it because I'm a natural pessimist. So it could just be like, ugh, why bother? But I don't know. Hormones were stronger than that, I guess. But yeah, so it's called Marryable. It's by Haley DeMarco and Michael DeMarco. So the same lady author as Dateable, but it's with her husband this time.
Yeah.
No,
So
expect lots
whoever
of
the
quips.
other dude was, he got pushed out of the sequel. They
Yep.
recast him as what, Dustin? Is that what you said his name is?
Justin.
Justin.
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
he was vying in the he came out with the courts to try to get some residuals from Marryable after they cut him out?
Oh, I don't know.
I would love to think that that's true.
Yeah.
He did.
So this,
Squabbling over the pennies they made from their horrible dating book.
they got a couple from me, so congrats, guys.
Her husband realized that they were having an emotional affair after reading Dateable and was like,
An emotional affair.
They read that quippy back and forth from the intro to the Dateable book, and he's
Yeah,
like,
he was
"Hey, wait!
there's a lot of heat here. These
I'm the
changes
only
are
one."
on fire.
One thing about
Okay.
this book is that it was written in 2005, 2 years after Dateable, and the graphics in here, you can tell that the internet was just becoming a thing. So it has, like, if you're not watching, obviously you're not watching the video,
Is
but
there a dildo on the front cover?
oh, that's a phone, but
Okay.
do what you want with it.
It's cordless. Don't lose your grip.
We need to take a picture of that from a distance so everyone we can put it on the Instagram so everyone can know why it looks like a dildo with a fat set of
Did I
balls.
do like a YouTuber thumbnail thing and just be like,
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
With the
I've never seen a book before.
And now who's staring at it?
It's a girl. Just
Okay.
a random
She's
chick.
desperately awaiting her suitor's call, and it's never coming.
No.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't call, you're not
And
allowed
by
to call
never
him.
coming, you mean
Oh.
It goes for both of them.
But yeah, what I
Sounds
was
like
saying
a
about
successful Christian marriage, if you ask me.
oh my word. Oh yeah. So the inside of the book looks kind of like a web page surfer or web. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Surf in the World Wide Web. There's like a
Looks like
little like a
Windows.
search bar at the top, and there's a picture of a cursor over one of the chapters, and they all are underlined like they're links.
Oh yeah,
And
it
stuff.
looks like a not like a late '90s, early 2000s Internet Explorer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, in the 2 years between Dateable and Marryable, do you feel that the primary author, grew?
I think so, but not in a good way. It seems like they took some of the stuff from the Dateable book and just kind of amped it up a little bit. So
They're kind of
So-
double dipping, really.
yeah. Well, it was kind of like Dateable was supposed to be for teenagers, and I think this one is more supposed to be for like full adults that are looking for a marriage partner.
Was this is this like pre Tinder and stuff, or do they get into that?
Well, there's a
Dating
chapter
app?
called Online Dating, not just for
Oh,
the
that's
desperate
yeah.
anymore.
So online dating was mostly I think in that time. You said 2005. I feel like
Yeah.
online dating was actually about online dating. I feel like it was more in the app era that people were like, I'd like to just find someone to have sex with, and then
Yeah, like this was still when like you were seeing eHarmony commercials on
yeah,
TV
eHarmony was
and
Christian,
stuff.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Was it?
I think eHarmony started out as a Christian thing.
Oh, I wouldn't be
We'll have to look
surprised.
into that, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
So what's our first section that you've prepared for us?
So our first section is going with the internet theme. This entire book, the chapters seem very clickbaity. I don't know what the book version of clickbait would be. But the chapter is called "Don't Marry Your Best Friend Unless You're Gay,"
Uh,
and that is
I don't like
don't
that
know.
they're supporting homosexual marriages.
I was gonna say that's clickbait for Christians.
Yeah, they're just like, gay. What is the word gay doing in
Unless-
here?
I think they could have. I don't. I think the way that came off is probably different than they intended.
It is, because I read that chapter first because I'm like, what is this? And so
They know everyone reading it is going to be like, ugh.
well, it doesn't mention anything about like gayness at all in there. Like it doesn't say anything about that. It's just why you shouldn't consider your spouse your best friend, or why you
'Cause your-
shouldn't be like,
Your best friend has to be the same sex. I'm guessing it obviously is where
well,
they're
because
going
you can
with
throw away your best friends. You can't throw away your marriage,
But
pretty much. Yeah.
you don't have to, and you
I
can
know,
actually throw
that's-
away your marriage
that's-
too. So
That's the thing. It's just so weird. And then it has these really, I'll read it, but there's like sweeping generalizations of what men's friendships and women's friendships look like.
I'm excited about this.
These are good.
Oh yeah, okay. So
Nothing makes me want to marry my best friend more than sweeping generalizations. So let's go.
yeah, it's amazing. Okay, male bonding. Attendance is 100% of the grade. At the core of man-to-man relationships is the simple question: did both guys show up? When guys have other guys as best friends, they're defined by the number and types of activities they participate in. This means that if you're a guy, your best friends historically have been those who've done things with you, like sports, blowing things up, making noises with your bodies, doing semi-illegal things with automobiles, and snapping tails at each other in the locker room. For
Oh my
instance,
God.
picking another guy up from the airport and helping him move is a telltale sign of a budding best friend. And during these activities, the guys have the option of hardly speaking without any danger of offending the other guy. That's part one.
I don't think any of that is true for me, but I guess that
no.
means I'm gay. So
Well, it's
here I
like,
am.
well,
It's Pride
we'll get
Month.
to
I'm outing myself, I guess.
we'll get to stuff in part two or in the next excerpt. But I was thinking the same thing about Casey too, because I don't know, it's just not true of all dudes. Like I've
Well,
known
men
guys.
don't have meaningful relationships. You know,
That's what that's saying.
Yeah.
Men
don't
literally what
bond
that's
on
saying.
on an emotional level at all because men don't talk about feelings.
Right.
It's like she learned everything that she knows about men from like watching like 2000 sitcoms.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, oh, the dumb ape scratching and farting.
Right. Exactly.
Like it's like everything that person knows about men is from like one episode of The Simpsons and looking at what Homer's like, and you're like, oh, okay.
exactly.
I don't. All I know is that all the relationships I've ever had were built on actual conversations and getting to know those people. It's like,
Yeah, I think that's normal. That's like the
Yeah.
way that it should be to have a close relationship. They're saying that like, oh, guys don't need close relationships. They just need to sit in the same room in front of a TV. That's it.
just so dumb. No one does. If you're sitting in the same room for hours and not saying anything to each other except for like grunting and farting, you're
Right. That's
like,
weird.
probably you need to talk to somebody like professionally and deal with like that. Doesn't make any sense. No one's really like that.
Yeah, it just perpetuates like the stereotype, like the whole thing, like, oh, dudes don't show feeling. It's like a disservice to guys to like reduce them to that.
Yeah.
Now
It's like-
Justin might be that.
Yeah, maybe he is. I don't know.
Like Justin might be a troglodyte turd with no brain cells.
Maybe this is a passive aggressive hit at him from the chick's husband.
Yeah. She's like, I'm really sick of you sitting next to me on the couch and not talking to me and just like farting on my thigh. So
Yeah. Okay, here's the female friend grading. Class participation and book reports. Here we go. Girls, on the other hand, will quantify their best friends not by the activities they do together, but rather by the following formula. Take the sum and sheer numbers of words, hopes, fears, and tears exchanged with one another and multiply by the frequency of contact. This phenomenon is known scientifically as, get ready for this, non-stoppus talkus latimus.
Oh my god.
Oh, kill
That's
me.
clever.
That's
these
peak
are
cringe.
Yeah. When it comes to words, make no mistake, girls want quality and quantity. But if they must, they'll begrudgingly settle for just quantity. So while guys key in on the activity or simply being in the presence of their friend to establish best buddyhood, girls care less about where they are with their gal pal and focus on the quality of sharing and quantity of conversation.
I'll let you unpack that one. Sounds
Ooh.
insane, but
As I was never a chatty person when I was younger. So this does it the quality spoke to me a lot. Like I eventually got to a place where I could tell my best friends things that I was thinking, which is a whole other thing. But it was kind of just like, I don't know. It's I don't even know. It's just not, I mean, maybe some ladies are like that. They just want to yak all day and about nothing. I could see this being more about, it seems like they're talking about like boomer age people and how they
that's
interact
what
with
it
other
must be,
genders.
right? Like that makes it sound like, yeah, it just makes it sound like they'll again, everything they're going to talk about obviously is going to be based on ridiculous stereotypes.
Yeah,
And
maybe there's some people that follow that and whatever. If you do that and you're happy, that's fine. But it's a little weird to just be like, well, this is how girls are. They just
think-
talk.
yeah, like they just
It is true that like people older than like the next generation up, they don't really have a lot of friends and aren't very good at making friends. That's a
Yeah.
sweeping generalization in itself. I know not everybody's like that, but a lot of people in my orbit, when I look at them, it's like they get together for like casual things where they make small talk and a lot of like, boy, we're getting a lot of rain this year and blah blah blah, you know. Oh, did you
Yeah.
see this? Did you see that on TV? Blah blah blah. But they don't have a lot of like long lasting, meaningful friendships where they really invest in each other. And I think that was more the model up until like, I don't know, the last few decades. It was
Yeah.
like, you don't need friends. You have a family now, and your family's the only thing that you can really be interested in, and that's it.
Yeah, like you feel like when they talk to you that they're not really interested in you. They're just interested in having you seeing them talking to you.
We're
Or
out.
something.
We're having fun. We're talking.
yeah.
We're giggling a little bit.
Yeah. And if you don't seem very interested, they're just like, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking? There's nothing to talk about. Well, you should talk anyway.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to parse out because if we're talking about boomers, we're talking about obviously, like you said, in generalizations, but
Yeah.
I think there are truths to that. Like, I think a lot of people our age would say similarly that their parents aren't out. They're not like going out, hanging out, doing stuff all the time. Like they don't have a wide group of friends. They might have like a couple they go out with frequently for a time, but then maybe that kind of fizzles out or shifts. Most of their interactions, if you're talking about our circle, is probably through church. Like, oh, let's do maybe a dinner or something like that. They might watch a game together. But I think that there are, it does feel like there are some differences in the way that like boomers have friendships and what those are like, as opposed to what it's like for millennials. But also, I'm wondering if in like 20 to 30 years, I'm going to be in the same boat.
Yeah, I was going to say, we sound very like, oh, the older people don't understand us and stuff. That sounds like
when I was like
whoopsie
7, 8, 9, 10, and we were doing like home church, like my parents had like, and those are still their good friends. They don't live as close to them anymore because we moved when I was 13. But
yeah,
like we had a real group of friends. My parents would like, they'd get together, they'd go out, like we were all really close. And those are still my parents' close friends. So
that's good.
I think like maybe they're somewhat of an exception, but I don't know I feel like the types of it might just be internet generation people, things maybe changed a little bit, but it does feel like the types of hanging out and the way that people hang out, it feels a little bit different, but that also might just have to do with so many like being older church folk versus people that we know who have almost all left and have a different way of hanging out.
Yeah, and I think the internet. Well, I want to say my parents had some good friends growing up, they happened to all be in the military, so they ended up moving away every time. So that kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But they did have friends, and we would be friends with their kids and everything, which was really fun. But I wonder if part of the friendship, like being able to access sort of like a deeper level with people our age and these days, is because of the internet. It's easier for some people, including myself, to share with people. Maybe, I don't know, not overshare, but like it's easier to open up to people when you're texting back and forth rather than just like sitting down face to face being like, here's all my problems.
Yeah, and there's a lot more like cultural support for talking about what's going on in your life and stuff, whereas before there wasn't really a platform for it, and it wasn't necessarily like encouraged a lot of times.
Right.
Especially if you were in the church and like there's this stoicism that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to be the leader of your family if you're a male, and this as a spiritual leader if you're really having difficulties or not connecting with things on a spiritual level. Like there, you do have to navigate not wanting to talk about that with the shame that might come with that in a church setting. So I think even those settings set you up for having to put on like a false sense of stoicism as well.
Yeah, like mental health is a big one too. Like if you're like, oh, I'm struggling with this, they're just like, oh well, oh, you're fine, you know, you're not depressed. Come on, like what do you have to be sad about? Like that's kind of a big thing. But like people, I mean, my mom and my family is really great about that. Like they're real big proponents of getting the help that you need and like medications and stuff. But I feel like I've seen like people in other circles that are just like, if you take medicine for something, then it's like a big thing. Like, oh, we don't take medicine for stuff. Like we just
that was
pull
part
stuff
of
up by bootstraps and we deal with it. You know, you're fine and all this stuff. And so that can make it hard to talk to people about things if you know that's what they're going to think about it. It's hard, makes it more hard to open up to them.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's hit on. We're already like 27 minutes into this thing, and we've gotten through like a tiny section.
Okay, so the next one is the next two are basically just two parts of the same chapter because it was that ridiculous.
I'm just
so the chapter.
This can't end here. Well, this is now we're now in a book study together.
Can we do a series, like a book series?
Yeah.
Okay, this one's called Nice Guys Really Do Finish Last.
Wait, hold up the picture of that guy real quick.
Oh, it's a guy. It looks like a newsboy. He's wearing a newsboy cap.
Oh,
and
he looks
says,
cool.
Extra, extra, I finished in last place.
And that basket he's holding is full of pop vinyl figurines.
Oh my gosh. Unopened. Can't open them.
Don't open
do it. They'll lose the Oh my gosh, I can't
That's
talk.
My 401k.
That's your retirement plan. Mine was Beanie Babies, so I'm fucked.
I was thinking about Beanie Babies too. All right, so this chapter is about Reddit. I mean, you know, you didn't hear me say that. Okay.
Wait, it's about Reddit or it's not?
About Reddit. Redditors.
Just taking a shot at Redditors.
Taking a shot at them.
They're kind of awful.
It didn't work out. Or maybe 4chaners.
This might be the one point of overlap that we have with this person is that Reddit sucks.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you can't delete the comments, don't look. That's my policy. Okay. So this is about, all right. We found the first guys voted off on dating shows were the nice guys. For centuries, nice guys have been saying, I just need to treat her like crap and then she'll like me. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. We might investigate the following hypothesis. She doesn't dislike you because you're nice. She dislikes you because you're too transparent. The problem with the nice guy isn't that he's too nice. It's that he's too fast in giving up his emotions and his heart. For men to have emotions is okay and even normal, but to readily express them is a more feminine trait. Whether this comes from social programming or divine design, it is now the status quo. Because of this, women tend to set the emotional tone and rate of emotional disclosure in relationships. If the man is more emotional than the woman, she feels off balance.
She feels like a lesbian.
Oh my gosh. It feels like overkill because she isn't that emotional yet. When the nice guy takes over the emotional speed control, he can seem rather girly. All right.
Damn.
There's one little thing.
That really speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does. Oh, actually, no. I'm gonna read the next. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's the precursor to the real part of this. Okay.
Oh, so that's only part. Okay.
It's about saying I love you.
Oh,
All right. If he were to say, I love you too soon before she's ready, then he would risk appearing like the nice guy, too emotionally involved too soon. As she moves the emotional meter further and further along the continuum, the conscientious male monitors her levels and performs the delicate dance that allows him to be always the leading her emotionally, yet only to the extent that she is already there. The big double standard for guys to accept is this. Guy says, I love you before girl is ready, turn off. Girl says, I love you before guy is ready, still in the game. Guys, you can rescue your almost loved one with this response. Never say it back if she's the first one to say it. If you think if you think you're never going to feel it, you need to use this opportunity to let her know. But if you do love her, somewhere along the line, you miss the signs of her love. You'll need to recreate the event so you can say it first, showing that you're able to read and lead her emotionally. Things will be awkward, but be
You need to
patient.
emotionally manipulate this poor girl.
Cover your tracks with, we've got something special here. Let's keep it going.
Cover your lies.
And regroup. That's part one.
Holy shit. All right. So the first part is basically like, what the first part you read was basically about like, you should kind of be an asshole, even though they didn't phrase it.
Yeah,
like
don't be too emotional because that's girly. Girls
this
don't
is
like
incel
it.
stuff.
It's funny because they say girls thrive on getting emotionally from their friends, but then they're like, don't give her anything emotionally ever.
But then they flip it and they say that you need to be the first one to do that. Like that's just the same thing that happened in the Dateable book is they like go off on one stereotype and then in the next section they're like, but also, and they're literally saying the opposite of what they said 3 paragraphs earlier. It's like, be emotionally unavailable. Don't give in to those emotions. But if she says I love you first, you need to make her forget that even happened, gaslight the shit out of that bitch, and then tell her you love her and make her think it was you the whole time that came up with that strategy. It's crazy.
You're just telling the guys, you must be in control. If she thinks that she's in control, no, you show her that you are in control and you let out emotions when you want to. You give her a snippet, give her a little crumb of a feeling like every 3 weeks, but only if she doesn't give you anything first. You be the one to do it.
Yeah. It's like chain her up in your basement, feed her when she's starving to death. And,
but not when she asks for it.
And then when you do it, she'll say thank you. And then you know that
she'll appreciate you.
There. And once she finally develops full-blown Stockholm syndrome, you know that you're ready for marriage.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for the summary of this book.
You know what this is? This is like, it's like they rewrote the game with like a Christian tilt. Have you ever heard of that book?
Unfortunately. Basically, it's a book that says, treat girls like crap and they'll like you.
Yeah, it's like a pickup artist how-to sort of thing is what it's intended to be. Yeah. I remember some guys in my dorm were really into it. Not at Liberty, but at Hillsdale.
Yeah.
And
who did that? It was like an older movie, right?
No. This is a book.
It's a book.
Oh, it's like it's also a movie, but
well, it's probably
in quotes self-help book. How to get girls by being a douche.
It was a lot of that. It was like, hey, you need to make her feel like you're out of her league, even if you're not. Like, and you do that by being cold and dismissive and like treating her poorly and stuff, and that'll make her want you, and she'll.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were convinced, man. The guys in the room next to me were like convinced, and one guy had actually like gotten a girlfriend. I don't know if he did any of the stuff that was in the book, but he was like an acolyte of this book.
Ugh.
And I think it was really popular like in that era, like that 2000s era thing. Wasn't that when like negging was a thing?
Oh my gosh, my favorite thing. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I do not respond to that at all.
No, you don't.
I can, like riff back and forth a little bit, but if a dude, I mean, I've had people try that on me and it doesn't work. That's the fastest way to get me to never talk to you again.
I don't even recall what negging is.
Basically just being mean to someone in hopes that they'll be like, oh, I want his approval.
Let me pull your hair like and put gum in it and poke you in the back of the head in class with a pencil.
It'd be something like, you're making an offhanded, rude comment or something like that. It'd be
Yeah.
like, you're not the prettiest person in your friend group, but you're all right.
The Helga
Yeah.
Pataki approach.
It's like, oh, you're kind of a slut, but you're all right to hang out with.
What did you say?
I said,
Helga-
you're kind of a slut, but you're fine to hang out with.
Yeah,
What did you say, Sam? I missed a
I
reference.
said the Helga. I think I said the Helga Pataki approach from Hey Arnold.
Oh
She
my
would just
gosh.
treat him like shit all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now that that could be turned into income, so maybe all these people should open a website for that.
You want that guy's attention? Call him football head.
Yeah. The game was also a 1997 thriller with Michael Douglas, and that's what I thought you were talking about when you said the game. And that
I don't think I've
pretty
seen
good.
that.
That's probably the better game. Stick with that game.
Yeah.
Avoid
Yeah.
the game in paperback.
Don't give the book a second glance, please.
It is.
I
It's
mean-
weird because it's like there's like pieces in there that are kind of. It's like a misinterpretation of things that are kind of true. Like if you just puke all of your feelings all over someone that you don't really have that emotional connection with yet, it might scare them off.
It
And,
can
like-
be weird. I've had people overshare the first time you meet them, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, bud,
Yeah.
that
Ah,
maybe wait until our
Like-
second date."
Dude, like romantic attraction and stuff aside, like there was always that kid in youth group too that just like he
Yeah.
would just like throw up like whatever. I don't know. It was like
Usually in the form of a prayer request when everyone got to
Oh my
say their piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get that on the internet too, like, or on Twitch, or like if I'm trapped behind a booth at a Comic-Con, like they'll just come up and tell me the whole thing. I'm like, wait, what's your name? I don't know you. It's a little uncomfy.
People at Comic Cons like to list off their medications like within the first few minutes of meeting them.
Yeah, I'm like, we're not good friends yet. I don't know. I just it's a little off-putting at times. They call it trauma dumping.
Trauma dumping. There
Yeah.
we go. That's a great term for it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's that. And everybody's got a friend or is a friend that gets very attached way too quickly. Like, there's a point at which like you can really hit it off with someone. You shouldn't be telling them you love them
No.
week 2. Like that's a lot to throw on somebody.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's definitely more going on there if you're doing that. Like, is that an attempt to like lock somebody in or,
Anxious
I don't know.
attachment style, maybe, like they're just like, I want to keep them, and they just like do it all the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, dropping the L bomb early can definitely be I think that person might be on their way out, and let's see if I can pull them back in with this. They're not gonna be too off put by it.
Yeah, or maybe, yeah.
It's
I don't
more
know.
about like misinterpreting the other person's signs than it is like some sort of bird-like mating dance that you have to fluff your plumage
Right.
and lead her into the trees, and to
Yeah.
get her approval.
Yeah.
Okay, the last like little segment, it's like it can continue this conversation because it's related to the bad guy thing. It's like this little
yeah.
excerpt in black. It's in black, so that means it's edgy and serious.
Something naughty this way comes.
Something naughty. Okay, it says the initial attraction of the bad boy, and the text is in red, so you know. Okay, the bad boy that girls squirm over typically seems to have a well-defined personality. He has a style all his own. He has a suave confidence that might almost seem like arrogance to some, but at least he knows who he is and what he wants. He's a man's man, firm, silent, confident. He doesn't smile a lot like a schoolgirl. He doesn't get overly excited or giddy. He doesn't have a bunch of girlfriends who consider him just one of the girls. He has the typically male characteristics that draw the attention of the female. This is like a nature documentary. The female. When he picks her up for a date, he isn't standing at attention like a love-struck schoolboy. He's calm and casual, in control. If he offers flowers, they almost look like an afterthought, not a bouquet he spent hours searching for. His understated actions make the female think perhaps he's had so much experience dating that this isn't anything new. That must mean a lot of girls like him, and therefore he must be quite a catch. Follow the female logic? Girls yearn for the bad boy because he seems to know more than he's letting on. He doesn't gush over her. He clearly likes her, but he's holding something back, and that's intriguing. He isn't afraid to ask her out or take her hand or to lead the way. In her estimation, he's a real man, and what's most important is that he makes her feel like a real woman. Why? Because he has no female characteristics that compete with her own. Instead, he seems to need her to bring the female traits to the relationship. It's a perfect union, each falling in where the other's lacking. Is that a sex reference?
It's like the man with no name, and you can be like the doubting damsel in distress.
Yeah. Like you said with the things that might seem good, like it is good to have confidence. It's not good to like overwhelm somebody with like not love bomb them right away, but like to seem cold and distant and not care, like not, oh, I just got these flowers for you, who cares? I don't even know where they're from. Like, I would not feel special going out with somebody like that. I would love to have somebody like Casey would know like what my favorite flower is and pick up a bouquet of like certain flowers that he knows I don't know. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's being married for like 12 years that I'm just like, what is this? Why would anybody want this? But I know people date those people. I don't know. It's just, it's so extreme. It's very extreme.
Yeah, it's like, oh, let me go and find the flowers that I know this person hates so I can make her feel like shit, and then she'll be like, oh, he doesn't care about me, I should love him more. Like this whole thing is setting up an awful toxic kind of relationship.
She's just vying for his approval and he's never giving it, except in small teeny doses. Okay, I'll hold your hand, but I'm gonna smirk while I do it.
He pins her corsage on real casual like and stabs her in the chest with it.
Yeah. Or he doesn't even care. He doesn't even put the flowers on her wrist. He just hands it to her. Here you go.
Yeah, and then that complements each other perfectly. Oh, wherever they laugh, they feel like that's the holes you're filling. No pun intended, because that can't happen before marriage. But
you know what that section says to me?
To fill the holes.
That section to me, you could condense all of that down into, I wish Justin made me feel like a real woman.
Oh, no. Oh.
Yeah. It's an insane book. There's more in the series too, isn't there? Isn't there more of these?
Well, Haley has written multiple books, and I think I don't remember if we looked through the titles last time, but she's written one called The Dirt on Sex. The Dirt on Breaking Up.
We need to get into that one next.
Mean Girls All Grown Up. Surviving Catty and Conniving Women. The Gospel Unplugged. And there's another one called like Too Sexy or something. Like a lot of her books have like a gal looking torso on the front, which is so weird because it's like, don't dress too sexy. Here's a book with a lady's torso on the front.
This one has a very male looking torso on the front, but that's just
right. I feel like she's probably got a book in the works that's like how to become a correspondent for One American News Network.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, there's a lot of books. It's like, well, the torsos are almost like, oh, these are all the clothes that you can't wear. But yeah,
oh my god,
she's written a lot. I have one called, I found these on, I did not give money to the authors. I bought these on Thrift Books. So they're secondhand. I got this one, the Marryable one, and one called The Dateable Rules, but I didn't know much about it. And it's basically just like a workbook for the dateable book.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I haven't looked through that one much yet, but this one I was just like, I looked at the chapters. I'm just like, don't marry your what? And there's another chapter called How Being Just Friends is a Waste of Time. So basically, if you're not looking for marriage, don't talk to anybody. Nope. Nobody.
Cool. She really is a great way of making relationships seem like cold, sterile, and unappealing.
Yeah, it's like a business transaction, like in the 50s or something.
A handshake deal.
Yeah. Next, she's going to be telling the ladies to pop some Xanax while they do housework.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, April, for sharing your findings with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always fun.
We need to hit. I definitely want to get the next section of this. We have to. I can't stop here.
Yeah, I'll find some other gems. Possibly, maybe dig into the diaries. We could do that, and in case
Yep.
anyone wants to know what teenage me was like. Spoiler alert. Not great. But yeah.
Well, so now's a good time to introduce our guest for this week, Ian. Which he's just going by Ian to protect some people close to him and their work and stuff like that. But Ian actually reached out to us as a listener. He grew up as a missionary kid in Hong Kong, and his parents have worked over there since he was like 2 years old, and they've done a number of different things. They did more traditional missionary work and stuff like that. They've moved on since then to helping with human trafficking victims and their children. And it sounds like they've done some really cool stuff. But Ian came on to talk about like the unique experience of being the child of a missionary, that occasionally has to come back to the U.S. and give speeches at churches and try to gather support and stay with people in their houses, and just like all of the things that you probably saw missionaries in your church do and go through. This is an inside look at what it was like to be the kid in that situation. It was a ton of fun talking to him.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, he originally reached out, and him and I just got to talking, and he put out a couple of like experiences he had, and we did touch on those in the podcast. And as soon as I read those stories, I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we like to talk about here. So he has some wicked funny stories. It's almost hard to believe that they're true, but they were. As a missionary, it's fun because he did grow up in Hong Kong. So like almost all of his experience in the US was just coming over here with his family, trying to raise support. He's very much part of, the Hong Kong culture and what the way of life is out there. And it's not quite the same as it is out here, especially when you're going through the South, raising money at Southern Baptist churches and things like that, versus Southern Baptist not really being a thing in Hong Kong. So even despite being missionaries that are supported by that, like his experience with that was very limited and kind of just those few times he was over here with his family.
Yeah. So it's a fun conversation, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. Before we break to the episode, just wanted to say thanks to everybody who's in the Discord. We've gotten some new people recently. It's been popping off in there lately.
Yeah.
It's been some funny conversations back and forth about some of the things going on, some more serious things, and people talking about some of the stuff that they're struggling with family and different stuff like that. If you're not in the Discord, you should join. It's a cool place to hang out with like-minded people. And there's no cost or anything associated with it. If you want to join up, you can find a link in any of our social media pages. But yeah, come on over, join the conversation. And as always, if you're enjoying the show, it helps us out a lot and really gets eyes on the show if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to the show. We would really appreciate a review. Thanks to everybody who's done that recently. We got a stack now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so look for the Discord link in our social media pages. Leave us a review, share with friends, and enjoy our conversation with Ian.
Hey everybody, we're back with our guest, Ian. Ian, thanks so much for joining us again.
Yeah, good to be here again.
Yeah, for anyone listening, again, is because we had literally just started recording and had to jump out and redo this. So anyway, Ian, why don't you go ahead and just kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself, the way you grew up, where you grew up, that whole world, because I am very much looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, so I was born in the U.S. In a small town in Illinois. Came to Hong Kong when I was about 2 years old. Been here ever since. So my parents are missionaries, Baptist missionaries to Hong Kong. And I can't remember, what denomination did you guys grow up in?
Baptist.
Yeah. I was like a non-denominational, but
the one that's going to heaven, right?
Yeah, exactly. We had a swimming pool.
Like it's funny. Non-denominational is essentially Southern Baptist minus like the culture.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's funny because like you go there and then it's like I would have to go back like about every 4 years, and my parents would visit all these different supporting churches. And there's a lot of First Baptists around around the year.
Never a Second Baptist either.
No. They never.
Everybody's the first. It's like the world's greatest cup of coffee sort of thing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did you guys mostly did you spend a lot of time in the Bible Belt when you would come back to visit?
So I mean, my parents are my dad's from Michigan, and then my mom's originally from the Philippines, but they moved to the U.S. when she was like 14. So, and they're in like the Illinois area, so mostly around the Midwest area. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What was their connection to Hong Kong, and how did you guys end up picking there?
So originally they wanted to do Mexico City, but I actually had really bad asthma growing up, so there was missionaries from there saying no, it's too polluted, don't go there. So I think that another missionary like in their organization did a presentation about Hong Kong, and no one really wanted to go, so they're like, oh, we should go there, I guess. And it's close to the Philippines, so my mom has family nearby, so yeah.
That's it. Why do you think people didn't want to go to Hong Kong? I feel like growing up you would come across missionaries who go everywhere, but Hong Kong or China was never something that people seem resistant to. Was it language barrier stuff? I know that people say that, that's a harder language to learn if you are European or whatever.
I think a lot of people wanted to go to China, but not Hong Kong.
Okay.
There's a lot more missionaries in Hong Kong because I think there's like those famous missionaries. I can't even remember their names. Like they went to China, and I guess it just seems more exotic. I feel like there's like two types of like missionaries. Ones that want to go like really exotic and like do the pygmies in Africa, that type of thing. And like the other ones want to go to like France, sip wine, and convert the Catholic.
That's so true.
So there's like two, and Hong Kong's kind of in between because like it's like a lot more modern than a lot of parts of China, but it's still not that comfortable for someone who just wants to go where people speak English.
Yeah, dude, the language barrier is always so. I don't actually know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but my wife and I always, when we were in our evangelical heyday, talked about being missionaries for a while. And
of course you did.
Yeah. And we had this idea that we'd go to Cambodia. I don't know how we settled there. I wrote a paper on it in college and was like, oh, wow, this is really, their history is wild. I don't remember a lot of it off the top of my head. This was like probably 12 or 13 years ago. I wrote this paper, but I just remember feeling like, oh, wow, this place seems like it could use, white person help. So I figured that'd be a great place for me to go. But we were always, we weren't kind of in that mode of let's just go and convert people in that way. Like we had this idea of wanting to actually do good somewhere where you could, like where you could use your resources to help. It wasn't just like here's a Bible, hope you don't die of Ebola or like that. But yeah, I think the exotic nature of it, as you said, was appealing, right? Like for me as someone, I'm like, oh, I should go somewhere where I could feel like when I told people I'd feel special. And there was this like narcissism attached to it. And I think that has to be the case for a lot of missions.
No, definitely. I think that like for a lot of people, it's like, oh, like if you go to a place that it's developed, like God is calling you for a more special purpose. Like you're the one you chose, like, to reach the people who have never been reached in history.
Yeah, I know it is. It's like a special calling. Like you're
exactly.
It's the Christian body count, not how many people you slept with, but how many people you saved.
Oh, people would ask us for our numbers. People would ask us for our body count when we would go.
Of course they would.
That was definitely a thing. Yeah.
They're looking for that ROI, dude. They want to know if their money is going to the right place.
Okay, so if we spent, if we gave you $200 this year and you save 30 souls, if we up it to 400, you can further the kingdom. You know what I mean?
My family's only eating Kentucky Fried Chicken twice a week now to support you, so I hope you're using it wisely.
But that was one thing I wanted to ask you guys, like, because, there's a lot of people like, and I feel like it's because like, a lot of people just feel like everywhere besides the US sucks. You know what I mean? But like, sometimes I would go to different churches, and I would see like the boards of where their missionaries were, like where these people are giving their money to. And these people don't have a lot of money. And it's like, dude, you're taking people to Australia? Like, that, like they're on the beach, like, that, like, you're giving to people, like, who are, like, in a very different way than you're thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, my church was big on missions. And I know we had some families that we supported that went to, like, they lived in the bush in Papua New Guinea and like translated the Bible, like basically helped them create a written language so they could translate the Bible and all that. It's just pretty impressive. And then we had some that, like, I remember we had one family that they went to the Netherlands, and they had been there forever. And like, they would show up and they were super weird, like very socially out of sync with everybody, like to the point where you look at them and you talk to them and you're like, you guys aren't interacting with a lot of people over there. And one of their kids played the accordion and the other one played the recorder.
Of course.
Yeah. And when they would come, the kids would have to like get up there and perform, and they looked so uncomfortable. And it's the only time I've ever heard an accordion and a recorder duet.
Those two instruments don't complement each other very well, do they?
They don't complement themselves very well.
Yeah. There's only one person who's successfully played the accordion and drawn the attention of millions, and that's Weird Al Yankovic. Otherwise, put your accordion down.
Oh yeah, we had to sing too. Definitely, go into all these different churches and teach, and then like it was always under the pretext of like, why don't you teach us a song? You know what I mean? And then like as if people are gonna remember it, So that was always fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this, like you guys coming there and singing a song in Chinese was like the biggest cultural experience for most of these people outside of like eating a microwave pizza at the local Chinese buffet.
Yeah. Going to a hibachi restaurant and seeing them make that little volcano out of the onions, like, ooh.
Do you have forks? I don't know what to do with these sticks.
That would weird me out. Actually, I love going to Chinese buffets in the U.S. because I would get because it was unlimited ice cream.
Yeah.
They had those ice cream machines. And I was like, yeah, let's go get some Chinese. Like, yeah, it didn't taste like Chinese, but like I got unlimited ice cream and like fried cheese sticks. So like, yeah, those were fun.
Chinese buffets are so funny because it's like, it doesn't matter what little town you're in. You can go to a Chinese buffet and you can count on it having like a couple of things. There's going to be like a really pale, bleak looking pizza. There's going to be onion rings. there's going to be ice cream for
At
sure.
The very
like
end, there's definitely some pasta with red sauce on it.
Yeah.
No, and then they're like, and then it would be like a town of like 2,000 people with like that type of Chinese buffet, and people would be like, I bet you're really missing a taste of home. Let me take you to like the most authentic Chinese restaurant. Like, I'm like, yeah.
That's so funny.
What did these? Okay, so I imagine like you guys come there, you have to perform and stuff like that. You had to get some weird questions from the people at the church. Very weird question.
I still remember this one. This one always sticks out. Like, so I was like, because by the time I was like 15, I was kind of staying back when my parents would go home. But like, so like when I was like 6, 10 and like 14, like, yeah, I would go to like all these churches. Man, we would squeeze in like maybe in 3 months, we would squeeze in maybe like 30 different churches. So we were going to like a church
There you
in like a different church on Sunday, a different church on Wednesday night, and a different church on Saturday night. I had never, in Hong Kong we just do Sundays, so I didn't know that you guys went to church like 3 times a week, which was really weird.
Don't tell those people. They'd be very disappointed to know that their money's not getting them at least 3 services.
I thought I was paying for 8 church services a week.
Anyway, but I still remember there was this one church, and the woman like went to my parents and like they were like, "So, do you let your children play with the natives?" Like that.
The natives.
The natives.
Oh my god.
That was funny. We would just get different things. Like, do you guys have cars over there?
In Hong Kong. Like in Hong Kong.
Yeah, in Hong Kong, which is like, I think we have the highest like percentage of like of luxury cars like in the world. Like,
really?
like yeah, we do like even I'm in an area right now which isn't like that well off, but like down the street there's like a McLaren dealership and stuff like that. Like Hong Kong people, most don't have cars, but the people who have cars, like, they're expensive.
Yeah, and people don't have cars because it's like
because the public transportation is so
rocks.
Good.
Yeah,
that like you don't need it. Like we have like we have buses, we have like trains. It's actually way more inconvenient to have cars because like there's nowhere to park and gas is super expensive. So it's like like you just don't need it.
My company has some distributors in China. And one of the guys that went over there and worked with several, I actually went over there a few years back. I went to Beijing and then to Shanghai.
Okay.
But one of the distributors said that he paid a person full time just to like drive the car around and park it in different places because it was cheaper than paying for parking.
Yeah.
Like, and then trying to get the car to you and all that stuff, which I thought that was wild. It's so different, you know?
Yeah, there's like, especially Hong Kong. Hong Kong has so little space. Like, it's a small place in general, but then 70% of it is country park. So only 30% of it is even livable. So everyone is like really on top of each other. And like, I think to rent a car parking like space per month in Hong Kong, even like, I think it costs about 3,500 Hong Kong, which divide that by about 8. So that's about, maybe 350 US dollars per month. Wait, no,
450.
450.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Just a park.
Yeah, just a park. And it would be about 3 million to buy the spot. 3 million. So divide that by 8. So that's like, I don't even.
Dang. But you get to be
As you can see, growing up in China didn't really help my math skills.
I thought Chinese people were great at math. You didn't.
Yeah.
Would have expected you to pick up something in their school system. Or were you homeschooled?
I know, but no, I was thankfully not. Yeah. We actually did have a bunch of missionaries that actually homeschooling here is illegal.
Okay.
Oh.
You cannot homeschool, which thank God for me, because I think otherwise I would have been. We had a couple missionaries who tried to come, but like they had like 5 kids or 6 kids, and like they wanted to homeschool them, and then but then they couldn't, so like they decided not to.
They figured that their kids' education was more important than the souls of the Chinese people.
Exactly. Because
so they actually went to Canada to serve Chinese people there.
That's a good second choice.
They went to that's like someone being like who lives in Boston going to like Chinatown to serve Chinese people there. It's like let's just like, I just really like Chinese people, I think. So as long as I can serve them anywhere.
At that point, it's like you're stalking Chinese people.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, okay, this went from being like calling to a fetish very quickly.
When you guys first moved there, was because Hong Kong was still under British control, in the late 90s, early 2000s?
Till 97. Were
you guys there when they switched over?
Yeah, so we moved in 95.
Okay, so right at the tail end.
Yeah, right at the tail end. So, it was, people thought it would be like a bigger change like than it was, because after the British left and the Chinese government took over, there's still a 50-year like agreement where you still are. So technically right now we're not our own country. We're a special administrative region. So we have our own government, our own constitution, everything. So that was guaranteed us from China for about 50 years. So until 47. But so there wasn't a huge change in 97. But then actually the last few years, it's more like it's instead of waiting for 47, they're kind of gradually, doing it. So there's a lot more change now than there was like back then.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, there was like some pretty gnarly protests going on around.
Yeah, big protests right before. Actually, like the pandemic kind of killed it. Yeah, the pandemic kind of killed the protest. Yeah, because like we couldn't gather and stuff like that.
Yeah, they didn't kill protests here apparently, which is funny. It was like the height of it was great because we had all the height of the pandemic was also like the I don't know if the culmination, but like when Black Lives Matter protests were at their peak, it was like mid-pandemic too, and that was a big controversy for some people because generally the people who were protesting and who were on that side of the fence were like they were the more liberal or left side of things, and those were the champions of stay home, do nothing, save lives. And now it's like, come on. Now you've just put us in this weird predicament where we're trying to save lives here, you're trying to save lives here, So just protest, wear a mask, don't get too close.
So for us, it's funny because like the protesters weren't scared of the government, but people out here are very scared in terms of like health and stuff like that. Like they're very conscious because we had SARS. So,
right.
Like, and that was like a much higher death rate than COVID. So I think like even like in the last like 20 years, like if not everyone does it, but if people were sick, it's like not uncommon to like wear a mask like when you're sick, just out of courtesy for other people. But like people here go to the hospital for everything. There was a cop who got hit in the face. There was a news story. He got hit in the face with some lady's titty. Like she used her titty to hit him in the face, and he went to the hospital for it. Yeah. It's just that's kind of the thing out here. Like people go to the hospital for everything. So this corona, people got really scared.
Yeah. Dude, that's great. I mean, well, people go here. The problem is our healthcare system is such a fucking failure that like everyone goes to the ER. Like, so if you actually have to go to the ER, you're going to be in a line because someone who doesn't have health insurance also has they're having trouble breathing or something. They go to the ER, and then it's in such shambles that the ER is one of the worst experiences, medical experience.
No, that's one of the reasons I would never move back to the U.S. is like healthcare is ridiculous. Like I broke my hand about a year ago. I went for I had like an X-ray, a CT scan. I had surgery. I had like 10 follow-up appointments, stuff like that. And I think I ended up paying about $150
oh my God.
for the whole thing. Yeah.
Sounds like socialism to me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it, but
yeah, we got it all figured out.
An expensive premium. That's so wild. Man, it's hard to hear stuff like that. And it's funny because when people around here hear that, it doesn't even compute. They're just like, no, that doesn't work. You're like, well, it's working.
That doesn't sound like freedom
doesn't
to me.
cover it. And you're like, there's other reasons it's being covered.
I would much rather have to decide between buying a house or leaving my kids an inheritance and maybe going in when I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah.
What I was always curious, like how many churches would support you guys at one given time? Do you have any idea what that number looks like?
It would probably be around I think it depends, because I know there's some missionaries who their home churches are kind of very mega churches or so they only have a couple, but we're going to all these Midwestern First Baptist, so we had to kind of spread it around. So I think I would
spread it like coronavirus.
Exactly. It would be maybe about 50 at one time, 50 churches and 20 individuals.
Oh, okay. So you got some support
so we
from
have a lot of people to visit. We had a lot of individual.
Did you have to have dinner at all those individual homes?
Yeah, definitely. Stay with them, have dinner with them. Yeah. I mean, a lot of them were,
You must have got pretty used to being around just complete strangers. Was that weird? Were you used to it, or were you like, did you like it? What was your feeling about like just going all around and staying at random people's houses?
I mean, for the most part, it was fine. I mean, it was, for me, it kind of all blended together. Like, oh, it's the same thing. Like, you get, especially like when you go to all these different churches, and the people who invite you to stay with them or have dinner with them are usually the same kind of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every church
Just
has
copy
that
and
person
paste.
that's like, let me get the missionaries. I need them to taste my casserole. Like.
Okay,
So,
here's
yeah.
a question for you. So you're in the U.S. You're going around and lobbying people and stuff like that, and they're having you over for dinner. Did you ever end up going to somebody's house that was just disgusting?
Well, yeah. Okay, so like I think I told you guys this already on the on Instagram, but yeah, like maybe I could go into a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah,
story.
definitely.
So,
Whatever you said on the Instagram only went to me. Casey doesn't know any of this, and neither do the people who are listening.
Okay. So so there was this couple. So we go into their house. I mean, their house isn't, it's whatever. It's not that nice, but like we go in there and like there's just something off about this couple. Like the woman looks like she's in her 50s and the guy is young. The guy is like 25. And like, there's like this elephant in the room that like no one wants to talk about. And, like, you don't want to mention it because like, it's
like,
it's,
are
it's
you
weird.
the mom? Like, did you know for a fact that they were a couple, or was there question about?
No, they were a couple. Like that was.
Well,
like,
I mean, when you were there, did you know? Like at the time when you first walked in, where you're like, "Oh, this looks like a nice single mom with her son who still lives at home," or were you like, did you know walking into that door you were walking into a couple's house?
We knew because like a lot of times like it was like, so the pastor would like ask the congregation like the week before like who wants to host these people, and then they'd be like, oh, so you're staying, and so like they gave a little rundown. Oh, you're staying with this husband and wife, whatever. So yeah, we go there. And the age disparity is like shocking. Like it's like it's not even like, and she wasn't even like a good like 55. She was like, she looked every bit of 55. So and then he was 25, and like it was just so. And so we go in there, no one wants to say anything, and then we kind of ate in silence for a couple minutes, and then they're like, you must be wondering about like what this is, and we're like, no, like no, like,
it hadn't crossed our minds.
Yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah. So anyway, and then they're like, and then they launch into this story, which I'm sure they've told 1,000 times, and I think in their mind they say this story to make it sound better, but it just sounds way more creepy. So, like to someone who's not a Christian, it sounds way more creepy. So this guy goes. He's right after college. He goes and stays with his friend. Because he has nowhere to stay. And his friend is moving back home from Christian college with his single mom. And so he goes to this his friend's house. He stays there. And he said one day he asked God, I really want a wife, and let me know what qualities you want me to have in a wife. So
he's like, God said proximity.
So he makes this list, and as he was like, and then he was in his room praying, and then all of a sudden he hears time for dinner.
Oh my God.
He hears time for dinner. He thinks, he's like, wait, and he looks at everything, and she ticks off every box on his list. He doesn't
know that he can't know that. That's awful.
I don't know how long into staying with them this was. I hope it was like longer than like a week.
Like
but,
the first night, he's like, God, give me a sign. And then here's time for dinner. He's like, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. You came through like a champ, God.
So I guess, I don't know. And so he's like, and then he was like, it just kind of happened from there. So I don't know, was he like hitting on his mom in front of his friend? Like, I don't get, like, I feel like I would want to know more about, how you navigated that.
Yeah.
But
I could say you could say for certain that guy is not his friend anymore.
He was the best man at his wedding, dude. Are you kidding?
I would just love to know what the real story is. There, like, how did this happen?
He walked.
Because
his
you know
mother
that's
down the
not what
aisle.
happened. Like, did they have a pregnancy scare or what?
Yeah, that was the first thing that I thought of. She went to, I don't know, man. It had to be weird. Like she would like, tuck him in at night.
Scare. She was out of pregnancy scare territory. No, it wasn't.
So he felt like he needed what? I mean,
yeah. Surprisingly, the son was not there at dinner.
Okay. They definitely fucked on a casserole. That's for damn sure.
I wonder if he makes his friend call him dad now.
Yeah.
Everyone in the house is calling him daddy. Yeah.
There should be like a book of just like the weirdest like dating and courtship stories in all of Christendom. Because you run into those stories like from time to time where, you know, somebody like that like will tell you how they met or how they ended up getting married and stuff, and you're just like, outside of this little bubble, this would seem insane.
Yeah. Inside that bubble, I guarantee everyone who went to that church was just like, how's it going, brother? Like they don't like it. None of them like it.
No, for sure. I mean, like
that kid's like he's like just out of youth group in his
scary. So like I think the older I get, the less I like staying at someone's house. But even as a kid, I really didn't enjoy staying at somebody's house. Like, was it uncomfortable when you had to go stay with these couples and families and stuff? Was it ever like, was there any in particular that you just hated that you didn't want to stay with?
There was one that like I loved and I hated because like it was in upstate New York. I still remember like it was in upstate New York. There was this couple, they're an older couple, like really in the middle of nowhere. And it was kind of like freaky to me because like, you know, I grew up in like a very major city and like they're out like in the middle of nowhere. And like, I had never been in a place that's like so quiet. That silence has a sound, you know what I mean? Like that hum.
Yeah.
Like, so that was, and then like, it was like a super old house and she had like a massive like doll collection.
Oh,
you know, yeah. And it was in the guest room. So I'm staying in the guest room and like that house always creeped me out.
They're all pointed at you. They're all staring at the bed. Complete seance circle around it. Was there a pentagram on the floor? Or...
No.
That's a Star of David.
I don't know. I didn't even look. But that was the scariest house. But they had ATVs and stuff, so that was fun to like ride. You know, like it's funny because cool, like you go to like some different houses and then it's like, you know, some are better than others. You know what I mean? It's like
some have video games, some don't.
Some have video games. Some you can't watch. Some you can play video games. Some you can't watch cartoons. Like it's, you know.
Was there any that had like real weird rules that they tried to enforce on you guys?
Nothing too weird that like I can remember. I did have like a couple like churches and like camps and stuff like that. Like there were some weird rules in there. I think I mentioned it on the Instagram message, but I think when we were talking, I still remember I went to one of those like church camps, and they had and at the beginning of camp, they made us all go around the flagpole, which was the fascination with the flag has always been weird to me. But
people don't love the Hong Kong flag where you're from. They're not all about it. It doesn't fly in churches.
It does not. Yeah. 4th of July services were always a trip too.
Yes.
But 4th of July services were always a trip. But anyway, so we gather around the flag one day, and then they're like, like let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I didn't put my hand up because I don't know the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, I was about 10. And then they're like, do the Pledge of Allegiance. And then I'm like, I knew to put my hand over my heart, but I didn't say the words because I don't know the words. And then they didn't believe me. And so they put me in a room and said, you can't do any activities and you can't eat until you learn the Pledge of Allegiance. So I had to go to my camp counselor and repeat it until I was like able to like do anything.
That's so culty.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Serves you right.
I pledge allegiance.
Hey, I still
to the
remember
flag.
it. No,
You're like,
so,
I live in Hong Kong. Like, but you can
yeah.
still pledge allegiance to the American flag.
Yeah, but
When
I
push
still
comes to
remember it,
shove,
so I guess it worked. Huh?
you know it now. Recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Go. No.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen. Yes.
George Washington's looking down from heaven right now with a smile on his face.
Is
Yeah.
there a pledge
So-
is there a pledge of allegiance to Hong Kong or to China?
And no, not really.
No. That's because America is God's chosen nation, so it makes sense that they wouldn't have when you think about it.
It seemed like them. Like I would go into like churches and like I remember going to like this pastor's office. He had like a life size cutout of like George W. Bush, like dressed up, like dressed as Uncle Sam. Dressed as Uncle Sam.
Did he make you pledge allegiance to that?
No, he did not. But
He makes everybody take a picture with it.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was weird because like people's like have hymnals and stuff like that, and like in the back of the hymnal is like, you know, the battle hymn of the Republic and stuff like that, and I'm like, what is this? You know?
It's so different. So when you're in Hong Kong, China, church is what was the church experience like there? Like, what kind of church were you part of? Like, how would you describe it?
So at the beginning, for like the first 13 years, my parents were trying to reach, you know, Chinese people. So they learned the language. So both my parents speak it fluently. My dad you know, can preach in Chinese. And then in Cantonese. So we speak Cantonese here. It's different than Mandarin.
Okay.
But yeah, so they're fluent in Cantonese. So we were doing Chinese churches for a while. But then after that, we kind of moved on to like, because we have a lot of like domestic workers here, like helpers. So almost any middle class family and above in Hong Kong has a helper.
Oh.
Because yeah, like with a kid, anyone with a kid who's like even lower middle class and above. We have people in public housing estates, like government sponsored housing estates, that have help. Like
Really?
it's not because it's not expensive. Because they live with you, and I think their minimum wage is about 3,500 Hong Kong. So the cost of a parking, so $450.
And they get food and shelter, like in a place to live, and
They get shelter.
They don't get food. They're on their own for food.
If they say the Pledge
like-
of Allegiance.
They have to no, they get like leftovers. I mean some
I mean, obviously
employers
it works. It's so it's just such a different cultural establishment. That's so funny.
So
to me.
some people are. Obviously some employers are better than others. Some, you know, share the food. Some, you know, it's like, oh, here's $20, go buy instant noodles. You know what I mean? Like it's really the luck of the draw on who you get as an employer.
Okay.
But yeah, so most of them are Filipino and Indonesian, and my mom's from the Philippines. So they started more gearing towards them because and then afterwards, then they started doing a lot more with them and like refugees and asylum seekers, and because we have a lot of like refugees and asylum seekers in Hong Kong too.
From what regions?
Mostly like Pakistan and India. We have a lot from like Pakistan, India, Africa, that kind of thing.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like what's the perception of people seeking asylum in Hong Kong? Because it's obviously a mixed bag anywhere you go, but like here it's kind of a clear divide. There's people in the middle for sure, but in the US it's very much like if they're coming, there's people who do not like the idea of us taking in people, especially the Middle East, right? Oh, how do you vet them? How do you make sure they're not a terrorist? There's a lot of like racism involved.
Yeah, like we don't have like terrorists and stuff here. I mean, like I would say the local people, they don't because we do also have a lot of ethnic minorities in Hong Kong, right? There's a lot of like Filipinos, Nepalis, Indians, Pakistanis, that type of thing. And but who are here legally and like work and stuff. And I don't really feel like Chinese people really even like know the difference that much. It's more just like, oh, they wouldn't like, oh, besides like in a side, they're just not Chinese. But like people out here aren't outwardly racist, but they're just they kind of keep to themselves. You know what I mean? Like they're not walking down the street like, get out of our country. But they're just like, I don't want to sit next to you on the train type of.
That was kind of the impression I got like in Beijing and Shanghai when I went there too, was that it was that kind of an attitude where like people just sort of kept to their social circle and their group and stuff like that. And I don't know, then you'd have pockets of different nationalities in there.
Yeah, but I think like America is like so different. I feel like that's most of the world. Like from where I've been, like I feel like America, like it's really like you try to talk to people that like you don't know like a lot. You know what I mean? Like going into like a store. I remember hating going into stores and stuff like that. Like, cause it's like the shop assistant's like talking to you the entire time. And it's like, I don't know you. It's kind of straight. Like, cause here, the only way that they would do that is like, if they're trying to tell you, like they're trying to sell you something. But like in the US, like you walk down the street and people are just like, hi, like, that's happen.
A regional thing too, man. Because the people will do that everywhere, but like I hate when people do that. I don't want to. If I'm not, I don't. Look, we're just because we're both looking at baked beans in the grocery store doesn't mean I want to have a conversation with you about what we're both looking at. And but when I lived in Virginia for a while, and when I was blown away by how many people thought it was just appropriate to have a full conversation with you about whatever they decided they wanted to talk about. And I just was like, what is happening? Like that never, maybe you get the occasional, like someone would like throw out like a little one-liner joke that they thought was funny. And you just have to go, yeah, and do that. But when I was in Virginia, it was like, oh, this is a conversation now. Like they're pulling you into their world and you don't have a choice. Or be an asshole. Like you would be perceived as an asshole for being like,
like you're the weird one.
And then you move on. They're like, oh wow, that guy's a dick. Because I don't want to talk to a complete stranger and my kid's in the car with the windows up and it's 90 degrees out. Come on, I got to get back out to my kid before they die. I mean,
why you hotboxing your kid though?
Come on.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like you would never have a conversation in a grocery store here with just someone like looking at the same thing as you. Like that would just never happen.
Yeah. So when you're the first, you said 6, 10, and 14 were like the times that you were here. So I assume when you were 6, maybe even 10, the churches you would visit, you would be swept away to Sunday school, or would you stay in the services with your parents?
My dad would obviously, do a sermon and like, the same sermon for like 50 times. So I would memorize
probably got pretty good at it.
Yeah. And then my mom would do Sunday school for the kids. Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, so I would be also leading Sunday school with, we had our little, did you ever have like when missionaries would come to your church, did they ever have like kind of like a flannel board with like all their different little knickknacks and stuff like that, like on there?
Yeah, they would have those. They would usually bring some like trinkets and stuff with them to show. And then they usually had like a slideshow that they would go through with pictures of where they were stationed and stuff.
Yeah, so we would have that. So I would like kind of like that table outside with all like the knickknacks and all. I would kind of like man that table, like, oh, what's this? Oh, this is for this, yada, yada, yada. So that would kind of be
tea out of this. And you're like, yeah,
exactly.
Tea out of it.
But like, so I wouldn't really like that. That's why I was so with you guys. Like, that's why I messaged you in the first place. Cause like, I didn't actually really like talk to that many people. Cause especially you're just there for like a day. You know what I mean? You're not really like making any connections with people or like really talking to them. But if it depends on also if the church had like a gym or a basketball hoop, because then I would just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is but I would see one thing I wanted to ask you guys is I would see all the lines and all. Like in the basketball court, there'd always be all these Awana lines.
Yeah.
What was Awana?
So Awana was like this. It was basically like a youth group curriculum, almost. But so like
pre-youth group, it was like you when you were old enough to no longer do Awana, you could probably hit middle school youth group, right? That went to like 6th grade or something like that. Casey, do you think?
Awana went clear up to high school.
What?
There was like different sections.
If you were in Awana as a high schooler,
were you guys not in it?
Nerd. I was in it.
I didn't.
But I'm a better person than Sam.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have Awana when I was a kid because I was home churched, bitch. I don't know what you want to do with that. I tried to play force.
Here's the thing. Awana was for kids with friends.
Sounds like a fucking rebel.
But when I was you damn well better know that when I was in high school, I volunteered to help because I cared about the youth, the next generation. I wanted to help.
Mm-hmm.
He had a heart for children.
Mindset. I did. I had a heart. Don't. What?
Yeah, Awana was like that. It was just kind of like this organized Sunday school youth group sort of program. So they had like specific games that they played on, the nights where they would do Awana. So that's what all the lines on the gym floor were.
Yeah, because I was wondering because I was like, what sport is this? Like because the lines weren't making any sense. Yeah.
If Christianity was a sport, it would be
Okay. Oh, but that reminds me of one last thing I remember I wanted to mention before. Like in terms of sports, I remember in that Christian camp that I had gone to, I was looking back at the photos and I realized that they put all the white kids in the same cabin.
What?
So
holy shit.
So there were only 3 black kids in the whole thing, me and a Mexican kid. And that was our cabin, and every other cabin was like white. So I remember we had
these
like
kids will get along great.
Cabin intramural basketball thing, and we fucking killed it. We fucking murdered it.
That plan backfired.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's amazing. Where was this camp at?
It was in the middle of Illinois. It's just like a very maybe 20 churches in the area, all funnel their kids there, that type of thing.
I think some of that is like it's less like blatant prejudice and more just like those people are
you guys will get along. Yeah, you guys will get along.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Well, they might feel weird if they're the only black kid amongst a bunch of white kids. So let's just put them all in one room together. And it's like, yeah, we tried that. It was called segregation, and people didn't appreciate
it. So what I'm curious, like, so you went to China as a young kid. Your dad's a preacher. Like, what's the course of Christianity and faith and stuff like that for you personally? Like, are you still a Christian? Did you ever get real devout?
I was never super devout. I mean, it was just kind of weird because, especially when I was growing up, it was my parents were, especially at the beginning, a very they grew up in Midwestern U.S. My mom in high school, and then everything around them was like a youth group. All their friends were from youth group, and they went to a small Christian college. They went to a small Christian college, and everyone there was super Christian. So they came with kind of that mentality with me. But then when I would go outside, no one was really Christian, and I felt like everyone was kind of normal. And then I would go home and I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't watch Harry Potter. I couldn't do all the normal things that I'm sure you guys had going on too. But then outside it was no one else is Christian. And even Christians here, and I think a lot of Christians around the world, unless they were specifically converted by American missionaries, are pretty they're a lot more chill about stuff like that. Even people in my church, how can you not watch Harry Potter? They would try to gift my parents bottles of wine, during the things like that. And so at the beginning it was kind of weird, it was, but, and so I would be pretty embarrassed actually most of the time. Like there's a place called Mongkok, and at one point it was like the most populated area in the world, like per square meter. And like my parents would kind of do like on Easter, they would like with the church, they would go and like do plays in like the middle of like the road. And I'd just be like, I would like walk in front of them and like kind of look and pretend like I wasn't with them and like pretend I was just watching the show.
Yeah.
Like it was a little embarrassing. Like I used to be embarrassed about, but I still believed in the back of my head. Like even when I was a teenager, I got very, like I got kicked out of school. I was pretty rebellious and things like that. But like in the back of my head, it was always like, I'll come back later. I'll like it's there. Christianity is still like, I don't really follow it, but like I never really questioned if it was true. And like one day I'll just go back.
Because when you're a kid, you're like, this is the only world I know, like as far as what truth is and how the world works and what reality is, and whether or not, like as a kid, you just want to do your thing. And some kids are rebellious, some kids aren't. But yeah, I mean, even when I was in youth group, the kids who were off like, smoking weed or drinking in the parking lot or something like that, they all would have been like, yeah, of course I believe. But like, because like there isn't really another alternative. I guess you definitely had, like you were saying, you had a bit more exposure to, maybe not exposure is a word, but there's probably less Christian influence where you were than there even is here. Like in a public education setting here, you'll find plenty of kids who are like, yeah, I'm Christian. Some people, variations to different degrees of commitment. But when you were in school, were there other Christians at all, or did you not know other Christian kids?
So until I was like, I didn't know at church. But especially when they moved into like more like dealing with like that kind of stuff, like helpers, asylum seekers, prostitute, like human trafficking, that type of stuff. Like there were no kids, because there wasn't really families around. But like in school, actually, so until I was about 15, I went to a Christian school. But like it wasn't like a Christian school because in America, like if you go to a Christian school, like your family is Christian. Here, it was a church, it was a school originally started for like missionary kids, but then like 20 years later, there were like almost no missionary kids in Hong Kong. So like they kind of opened it up to like regular people. And I would say like maybe 10% of kids, their parents were in the ministry, maybe 50% like were Christian, but they weren't like, they were like, I go to church on Sunday, whatever, Christians. And 50% were just like, hey, this is a good school, I'll send my kids here. This is a good school in English with an American curriculum, whatever. It was actually super expensive, but like my parents, because we were missionaries, we got like a massive discount. So that's why I got to go there. Yeah, so that's why I was there.
So like maybe the Christian influence wasn't still in place at the school, but the discount structure was still, so it all worked.
Yeah, it was still a Christian. Like, I mean, we had Bible class, we had chapel. But also we had Bible class, we had chapel, but also 70% of the kids didn't give a shit, like
Catholic school in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's all there, but and the teachers all have to be Christian. Like there was a big thing in Hong Kong in the newspaper a while ago because they a teacher got fired for being gay, which in the rest of Hong Kong is like, what the fuck? But so they were still pretty Christian in that sense.
In all the cool ways.
Yeah, all the ways that matter, if you ask me.
Yeah,
I think what you pointed out about the cultural difference in Christianity there versus like people who are converted by American, very interesting, because American Christians have this idea generally when they get into missions that they're trying to push against any other cultural moves. There's a lack of understanding around the idea that their Christianity is very culturally embedded.
It's very culturally embedded, and also what I've realized lately, it's very new. Like,
yes,
because like in a lot of the world where like there are a lot of countries in the world where like the population is like mainly Christian, but they came from like kind of more like a either like a Catholic or an Orthodox or Presbyterian from the UK, like, and like that version of Christianity is like what 2,000 years of Christianity was before like American Christianity kind of spread their version like in the last like 200 years.
It's our biggest export.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said like your parents worked with refugees, asylum seekers. You mentioned human trafficking and stuff like that.
That's kind of what they're doing now.
So right now, and I don't know how plugged into some of that stuff that you are, but like among people who have left Christianity, you know, it's a big thing here, right? And there's kind of like this general consensus that like missions in general, like as a whole, missions in general is a bad thing, that is like, it's like cultural colonialism, and it just like it's viewed in a very negative sense, like pretty much from every angle here.
Yeah.
And like you being on the ground there, I mean, what's your perception of it? Like, I would imagine there's a gulf between like what we think missionaries are doing in other countries and then some of the stuff, because I mean, like some of the stuff you're saying that your parents did, I mean, by all accounts sounds like great things.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like I'm much more happy with what they're doing now. Like I would say when it was like when they were doing like kind of like Chinese ministry, it was all like the main purpose is to save souls. It's to save souls, nothing else. You know, like giving tracts out like on the street, like that type of thing. Like we're just trying to save souls. I feel like now it's a lot more of a holistic approach of like, you know, like giving out food packs to, you know, struggling families and refugees. What they're planning to do now is like go back to the Philippines and open a like an orphanage for the children of like sex traffic victims and prostitutes and that type of thing. Like, which I feel like right now is a good work. Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, the main goal is still what it is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like I do feel like they are doing good work and making a difference. I would say a lot of missionaries are just there to like, you know, pump their numbers up, get that body count up. But I feel like my parents are doing, especially now, doing much more fulfilling work, and what I think like mission work kind of should be. You know, instead of like going to a country and painting a school where people there know how to paint better. You know.
Yeah. It is. It just, especially, I feel like, you know, as we've been thinking about going to Hong Kong. So I know, I shouldn't say I know. My understanding is growing up in evangelicalism and the way that they would talk about China, you'd always get those people who are like, it's illegal to be a Christian in China. And then you have those people with smuggle Bibles and it's really scary. And it's like this underground thing and you're almost like a secret agent and it's really sexy and cool. But so that's maybe why you were saying people like going to China versus Hong Kong. Is there any sort of like real resistance to Christianity in Hong Kong? Are they generally more neutral towards it?
In Hong Kong, no. In Hong Kong, it's completely open. China is actually, it is a different story. Like China is like in a church, like you have like Catholic churches and stuff like that. And like, they will have like someone from the government, like sitting in the back, like making sure you don't say anything, you know,
against the government. Or
like just against the government in general. It's not like they don't want you to give your life to Christ. You know, like they're looking more for like, it's like they want your soul. You know, like
it's weird because Americans act like they hate that, but that's literally what they do in this fucking country, dude. They're like, no, we gave our soul to our country and Jesus. Like as long as it's tied, they're fine. Exactly. So that's so funny to me. They're like,
but
as long as it's not the Chinese government. You give your soul to the American government, not the Chinese.
Americans make it sound like, oh, like, you know, like the communist government is like, we don't want you like to, you know, believe that Jesus Christ was risen. But I feel like at the end of the day, they're just like, hey, like, don't tell people that like the Chinese government is evil. It's
don't shit on communism, which is hard. I know that's the hardest thing to do as a Christian, but.
I don't really. The American Christian obsession with communism always boggles my mind because it's like it sounds pretty much like what Jesus wanted to do, but you know, I could be wrong. But
I do feel like for anyone listening, I should probably make it a little bit clear. I'm not some Chinese government apologist. I think they do some really fucked up things.
No, they definitely do. But like, it's just like, it's just it's fucked up in a different way, but like, it's not fucked up in that same way. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, they do have like occasionally my dad would go and preach in like house churches and underground churches there. You know what I mean? Like, so there is like, you know, some truth to it, but yeah, like it's not the easiest place in the world to be a Christian, but yeah.
It's so interesting to me. I guess I don't know what to say about it. Like the idea of an underground church and like navigating through it and preaching a message and hoping that no one gets arrested or so. I mean, of course, I think that's awful. Like, I think, but it's hard to, because as a kid, you would hear about that and you would think a lot about how like my entire life is wrapped up in this. But at the end of the day, I'm like, it's also hard to, maybe there's such a high level of surveillance and control, but it seems like here where honestly a lot of being a Christian is it's so much pageantry and making a spectacle of yourself, or putting yourself out there for the sake of, you know, shining that light, being that city on a hill or something like that, versus, you know, just, you know, meeting together for the sake of yourselves, and then edifying yourselves in whatever way you feel aligns with your Christian faith. I don't know. It's like, I think that's what's hard for me to think about. It's like, is there that level of surveillance where like you couldn't have like 5 families just like doing church every Sunday and then going about their business, or is that a problem?
Yeah,
or maybe you don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know too much about China. Like, it's so different actually than when where we are here. Yeah, and to be honest, like I haven't really like I grew up that way, like. But like when I was 15, when I got kicked out of that Christian school, like I also stopped. I didn't really, I mean, at that point, like I started working. And so, and I started working from the time I was like 16, and I ended up just getting my GED. So like, and at that point I had also stopped going to church. So I haven't really been, after the age of like 15, 16, like I haven't really been in like a Christian circle besides my parents. Like they're the only really, like everyone else I know outside, and like all my friends, I still have the same friends since I was like 16, and like they still don't really know the extent of it. And I feel like no one that I know really knows the extent of like the religiousness of like how and the way I grew up. And like it's always been weird for me, like there's no one really out like that understands that. Like I feel like if I like, that's why I like listening to you guys, because it's like, you know, it's kind of like a glimpse. It's for me, it's like like let's say a Korean kid is like adopted into the US, and like no Korean kid not adopted. Like let's say like a Korean kid, like his parents moved to like Missouri when he's like 5. Like you still have elements of that Korean culture like in yourself, right? But then at the same time, when no one around you is kind of like that anymore, you kind of like are on the outside, like looking in, even though you understand everything, but you're not huge. It was a huge part of you earlier. It's not a huge part of you right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like you could just walk back in and plug yourself into a group of people who have been doing that their entire lives. Like there's
exactly
a gulf there.
Yeah. So I would say like until I was like 15 and 16, like it really like I had to do like, you know, I'd be in church, like we wouldn't have service 3 times a day, but we would go to like 3 different churches in one day. You know, I would do, you know, devotions in the morning with my parents. On Sundays, they would put on a Ravi Zacharias sermon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Ravi.
I recently found out about that, what happened with that dude.
Yeah, he fell from grace, but he was dead, so it didn't hurt.
Yeah, it didn't have the same. It didn't have that same like feeling it would have if he got to actually be held accountable in some way, which was a little weird to find. Yeah, that was a weird one. But he was, dude, I mean, he was big in my family too, man. I grew up here, and not necessarily myself personally hearing his things, but he was a household name for sure.
Yeah. No, yeah. So anyway, like I never really like especially after that, like I wasn't like after the age of 16, I was never really in a Christian community. I've tried to go to like, and I feel like really like no one out here like understands kind of the level of religiousness is when I grew up. The only one, so I before this, I used to be for about 3 years because I grew up. I worked in bars and stuff. I was a bartender, and then I went to school for business, and then after that, I became a sales rep for an alcohol distributor. So I would go around to different bars and try to have them buy the brands that I was importing into Hong Kong. And I went to like this like shitty little dive bar on some island off the coast of Hong Kong, and there was this guy getting drunk there at like 2 in the morning. No, 2 in the afternoon. Sorry, kind of like to stave off the shakes kind of dude. And then I was like. And then he was like, so what do your parents do? And we were the only two there. So I'm like, yeah, my parents are missionaries. And he's like, yeah, man, I get it. I'm like, yeah, do you? Like that? Like, and then he's like, actually, my brother spoke at Billy Graham's funeral. So I get it. I'm like, whoa. Okay, you get it.
Like, you're like, that's why you're drinking at 2 in the afternoon.
Exactly. He's like, yeah. So, yeah.
Did you talk to him for a little bit? Like, did you actually have a connection? Like, were you like really?
I tried, but he was really drunk. Oh yeah, it was really early. Yeah, like
what the? Okay, so on the topic of alcohol, when I was there, they kind of the local distributors and stuff kind of took us out and like wined us and dined us every night. And I'm not like a big drinker at all.
Yeah.
And holy smokes, those people could, I mean, they could drink. The native Chinese people that we were with, they were awesome. But like, man,
sorry, you cut out there for me.
Oh, they could they could drink. Yeah, they were serious drinkers. And they drank this stuff called, I don't know what it is. I think it was like some sort of rice wine. What did you say?
Baijiu.
Yeah. That is some rough stuff.
What kind of alcohol disgusting.
Is it? It's rice. It's rice alcohol. It's much more popular in China than it is in Hong Kong.
Okay.
But that stuff is fucking potent. And the bottle it comes in looks like a cleaning solution bottle.
It's got the skull and crossbones on it and shit, right?
No, it literally looks like bleach. The bottle looks like bleach. It's fucking disgusting. But,
plastic? It's a plastic bottle.
Yeah, plastic bottle. Yeah.
I brought several bottles of it home, and my favorite game for a while until I ran out was to like trick people into trying it. And they would just be like, "Oh my god, what is that?"
No, it is not pleasant.
You can't really compare it to like if you're going to compare it to any alcohol here, like that you've had.
Everclear.
Is it clear, brown? Is it?
It's clear.
It's a clear.
I've never had
not
Everclear,
like vodka.
But you say it's kind of like Everclear.
Yeah. No, I would have you like.
I gotta try this stuff.
It would be more like a moonshine type thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Flavor. Yeah.
It smells like sour gummy. It smells like rotten gummy worms to me.
Yeah. No, it's fun. I've when I go to like, if I've gone to a Chinese restaurant, like I got like a cocktail of it. Like I can't finish it. Like it's disgusting. Yeah.
Pretty rough.
Nasty.
They have you passed out in the booth in the corner of the where you were eating, Casey?
I didn't drink a ton of it. Like I said, I'm not a big drinker, but everybody who did drink a lot of it got real sweaty.
Yeah. I feel like if it's like, you're used to certain alcohols, like what the average is probably 40%, right? But then if they're coming in with something that's like, over 50 and you're like, and you drink it like normal, and then all of a sudden everyone else is crazy fucked up, and everyone who's giving it to you is just, this is regular stuff. What's going on?
Dude, but people in China drink more than Chinese people in Hong Kong drink. Like they go wild. I worked in a bar one time where like a group of like 50-year-old like Chinese guys, mainland Chinese guys were drinking, and like it was like a free flow brunch kind of thing. And like, so all you could drink for like 3 hours, and like
they don't have that here. That's for goddamn.
They don't do that.
No, you can't. It's in my state. Happy hour is even illegal. You can't discount drinks ever in my state.
Yeah, it's also weird because like I know you can't buy, people out here like buy bottles of liquor for the table. Like I guess you can't do that out there either. But
No, wine. You can buy a bottle of wine at like a 300% markup, and that's about it.
yeah, you could buy like 3 bottles of whiskey for your table of 6 and like no big deal here. But
wow.
Yeah, anyway, so there were these 5 Chinese mainland guys, and then they went and then they got super drunk. 4 of them ran away from the bill and left their one friend who was like too drunk to stand like there. And like we wake him up, he stands up on his table and takes a shit on the chair. Like it was yeah, and passed out like there next to his shit.
Did he wait? So he I guess he still had to pay the bill when he woke up. Did they call the police? What do you do in a situation like that?
He got on all fours. So he got on all fours, and like a server had to wipe his ass like, on all fours. Someone went to throw away the chair.
You guys tip in Hong Kong? Cause
no, we don't tip.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's not a tipping culture. Anyway, so we took his wallet from his thing, paid the bill with his credit card while he was passed out there, put it back in his thing, and like kind of like, and we're just like, not our property, not our problem. So we kind of carried him outside and left him on the street, like next to the bar.
Thank you for your business. Please never come back.
And this was like, it was a bar that was it was like owned by Armani, like the clothing brand. So it was like a nice like rooftop bar. Yeah.
That's one of those Bilderberg parties.
Yeah. Yeah, but they shit in your mouth in the Bilderberg party. Hillary Clinton had anything to do with it?
Now you're talking like an evangelical.
Yeah, it's coming back. It's all coming back to you. Oh my god. I don't even know what to follow up with after a great story like that.
So, like, hey, maybe we should switch back gears. Do you remember how you used to, like, what did you guys used to think of, like, when missionaries would, like, come to your churches and stuff like that? Like, what would you guys, like, you know?
Oh, man. We didn't have a lot come to my church. Okay, I have 2 missionary stories. I think I've shared one of them, but one of them was, like, this is when my wife and I were really thinking about wanting to be missionaries, and we were in a church. This is when I was still in Virginia at Liberty University, and so we kind of like took on we were in contact with the missionaries that our church supported, and Casey's cracking up.
I just keep thinking about that.
You think it's so funny? Is it really that? It's funny that you think it's that funny because it's so on brand for me at that time. He's dying. All right, I'll keep telling my story despite the fact that Casey's as red-faced as you can possibly be. All right, so we're the ones like kind of contact, and the missionary family, as we keep in touch, it was monsoon season. They didn't have the support they needed to like really like prepare for like the monsoon, like, and they could lose everything if they weren't ready for that season. And
yeah,
we're like, oh, cool. Well, you know what? Why don't we just like approach our church and say, why don't we do like just ask for like a as you call them, love offerings, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but
I'm very familiar.
Yeah,
that's how we ate. That's how we ate.
Yeah. So we bring it to them and we're like, this is their situation. They're really struggling to get the finances they need to not really lose everything if they get hit by a monsoon and aren't like weatherproofed or whatever. I wish I could remember more of the details, but the response I got was, I don't know, if we do that, then we kind of have to do that for everybody if they ask, right? Then anyone can just ask. And you're like, okay, it's hard for me to understand why that's a problem as a Christian church, right? Shouldn't people be able to go to the church and ask for help? Like,
isn't that the whole point?
Yeah. Well, they shut it down. We came back to them a few weeks later. We're like, I mean, is there literally anything like we can do? And they're just like, we really can't. So they shut the whole thing down. And then that was honestly the beginning of I think I'm kind of done with the evangelical church kind of shit. Cause like that wasn't a new, like, even though that was a specific experience, like with that, it just kind of fit the mold of what I was starting to experience on a bigger level.
Yeah.
But my other experience was, and I'm going to be as vague as possible, because I don't know. How do I talk about this without it coming back to me in some way? I don't know. Whatever. Fuck it. There was these people who moved back to my area that were missionaries. I don't even remember where, but I met him at church, whatever. And it was clear that he was all about leveraging that I was a missionary stuff to like pick up chicks. That was his MO. It was so fucking annoying. It was constant. You couldn't have a conversation with like cute girls around without him being like, oh yeah, and I know this, and then he'd like say stuff in a different language.
Back in the mission field. In the field. Yeah.
Oh, we used to do this, and we had to drink our own piss sometimes. He didn't say that, but it was like it was anything you could think of to like make his life seem wild. And then as soon as they're like,
where was he a missionary to?
I honestly don't remember. It might
Somewhere
have been like
Asia,
it might have been Haiti.
Cleveland.
Yeah. I think it might have been Haiti.
I think I'd rather live in Haiti.
But yeah, it was, if you were alone with him, he would be more or less fine. But in a group, it was like very, I was a missionary. It's like, oh my God, dude, we get it. You saved souls for a living. Cool.
I feel like my church did a lot of missionary stuff. And then like several people that I knew ended up being missionaries like after they graduated school. There was a missionary school in Jackson, Michigan, which was about an hour south of where I lived, and several of my friends went there. Too? Yep. Yeah, I'm outside of Detroit and Ann Arbor.
Do you know where Cass City is?
Oh yeah, I can't think of exactly
like
where.
Cairo? Do you know where Cairo is?
Yeah.
Cairo, Cass City, like Bad Axe, that type of, like near Bad Axe.
Yeah, that's like what, West? Oh no, that's up in the Thumb.
In the Thumb.
That's no man's land up there.
Yeah, that's where my dad's from.
Yeah, that I was like a little south of there, closer to Ann Arbor.
Okay, so closer to civilization then. Yeah,
right. There's not much up there. That's for sure.
There's not. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you with your story. It's just I was just wondering. Yeah.
Well, we had like a lot of missionaries come through, and they pledged support to quite a few different ones. I don't know how many at any given time, but we had the little board with all the pins in it, with a little profile of the family. And it is funny. It's like you were saying, like there were people, like we had a family that lived in Papua New Guinea and translated the Bible into a language for a tribe and stuff. And then as soon as they were done, they like lived in the U.S. for 2 years and then went to a different tribe over there and did it again. They're pretty impressive.
That's wild. I mean, dude, you can't, as much as you want, if you can have your issues with trying to convert people to your religion all you want, you can't knock the commitment and drive that people have to be able to learn a language enough to translate the entire Bible into it. That's insane.
And it's a language that is completely useless in any other context.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's like a 3 square mile area in Papua New Guinea where people speak this language, and that's it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
No, and New Guinea's a wild place, man. It's a wild place.
Yeah, I was just watching a thing about them yesterday or the day before about there's a city there, like the capital city there's like one of the most dangerous cities in the world, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh.
But so those people would come back once in a while, and they would like the dad would preach and the kids would hang out with us, and do Sunday school stuff and everything. And we always liked it when they came because they had actual life experience and like could tell, they always brought some cool stuff with them, and they were nice people.
They had blow darts with them, right?
I think they did. Yeah.
Loincloths.
But they were fun when they came back. Although I did one time, the dad was given his slideshow, on the overhead, showing pictures of over there and stuff, and he showed this one. There was some of that, yeah. There, and they had to kind of apologize for it beforehand, because obviously those people are wrong.
Yeah.
they you know, they need to follow God's plan and wear a Super Bowl shirt with the wrong team on it, you know, or whatever. But they were showing this slideshow, and they get to this one slide, and you know, they you know, they're kind of talking about like how lost these people are out in the jungle, and they show this slide, and it's this guy, and he's got a stick, and his face is covered in blood. And they're like, you know, the natives, the people there, if, you know, it's kind of a traditional belief that like if you have a headache or something like that, like you have a spirit that's tormenting you and you need to like open up your head and get it out. Who knows if it's true? That's what they showed on the overhead. But this picture goes up on the screen of this guy's face just covered in blood. And I'm just like staring at it being like, I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And I start seeing the little spots, you know, and stuff. And then like pretty soon I wake
you had
up.
Your own demon they had to drill into your forehead and take out.
Yeah, exactly. We almost did an exorcism, but I woke up and I had like passed out and like fallen into my friend Jesse's mom's lap. And they're like shaking me, and the old ladies all thought I had a seizure. And,
wow, like so you actually passed out.
Yeah. I passed out twice during similar things. Once was during the missionary slideshow, and then once was at Liberty when they were describing abortion.
Are you sure you weren't slain in the spirit? I'm pretty sure that.
If so, I've legitimately been slain twice. But we had like those people who are really interesting, and then there was like the other ones that like they went to a first world country in like Europe or something. Yeah. And they were always weird and very socially awkward. And like, it was obvious that they went over there to like isolate their kids or something like that. Like they were super weird and just like, I don't know. It was such a distinct difference. And that was like the people who went to the Netherlands, like when they came back, they were so strange, and their kids would get up there and play the accordion and the recorder and stuff. They would go through their slideshow talking about how lost the people of the Netherlands are and stuff. And then like, this is Sunday night, so it's a 6 p.m. service. It takes them an hour to do their performances and their slideshows and stuff. And then the dad gets back up on stage where we're like checked out, ready to go home and stuff. And he goes,
how old were you at this point?
Oh boy, they came a couple of different times. I was probably like, maybe like 13 at this point, I would say.
Okay.
And the dad's like, you know, it's 7:10, and the dad's like, well, just wouldn't be right if y'all came to church and you didn't hear a sermon. So let me share a few thoughts with you. And we're just like, no! He talked another like 40 minutes. Just like killed us.
This is unrelated. But I visited a church once, a friend's church. I was in high school. I was visiting a friend of mine whose family also went to church, so I went too. And they had this homeschooled family doing special music, and it was the mom, the dad, and maybe their 12 or 13-year-old son. They did a rap that their son wrote, and it was.
Wait, was it good?
No. The mom was fucking killing it. The mom slam dunked the shit out of that rap verse.
And that kid grew
Her
up
feature
to be
was
Post
fire.
Malone.
Post Malone. Did they do it over a beat or just did it?
They did.
Acapella?
I don't know what beat they sampled, but it might have just been the electric drum kit that they maybe set the night before. But it was horrifying. Like it was amazing in the sense that my friend and I were able to have something to laugh about for the rest of this.
Wait, so the kid didn't rap? Like the parents
the kid did.
Rap?
The kid, the mom, and his dad, they all rapped. And it was just like it was what you think. It's like that. Oh God. What's that like? There was a video that was going around. Maybe Christian Nightmares posted, but just that like typical like hip hop, the hippity hoppity kind of like. Oh God, like, what is happening? I don't want
hippity hop, devil, will you stop?
Yeah, it And it was a full probably 3 minutes and they all had a couple of bars, they spit bars.
Sounds great.
Anyway, not related to missions, but
No, but thank you.
but I got
Thank you for
saved,
that
so it's
story.
like as good.
Man.
I don't feel like there's a wrong of time for that story. I feel like that did it anyway.
I kind of forgot about it until just now.
Well, okay, so in closing, I'm always curious
Yes.
when somebody's gone like to a lot of different places in the US, what was your favorite place? What was your least favorite place to go when you were here?
Obviously, like, so I think my favorite place was like,
A Denny's or an Applebee's around 11 p.m.
oh, I thought you meant, okay.
No,
In terms of what? Like, in terms of like a place,
There's,
the church,
like state or city or, part of the
Okay.
country.
I mean, there were not very many cities at all. It was more definitely towns. Obviously, like close to my family where I had my cousins and stuff. But like my parents, like before they moved, like their sending church was in Chicago. So the Chicago churches were always nice because we had one black church in Chicago, so that was always fun. Like, cause like my mom is very like expressive, so she got to do her like. She got to shout out amen during the sermon. Like she got to raise her hands and stuff like that. So those were always fun. There was one church, my least favorite. There was this one church where like, and they're not going to hear this because like, I don't think I think they're still on like Windows 98. Like they, like, so we had like a regular, like we do the slideshow and stuff and like a little video type thing. And like, so we always did like, we would come for the morning service where like my dad would do the sermon. And then in the evening is when we kind of do like our presentation type of thing. And like, and we go in the middle and they're like, can we see your presentation first? And then like, we didn't like, and so we played the presentation and they're like, oh, you can't play this. It's like, why? Because your background music has drums and like guitars and drums and stuff. So you can't play this. Yeah. So what we ended up having to do is like, by this time I had seen our presentation like 40 times. So like all the narration and all the testimonies, like I did like on the mic, like word for word. And my brother played the guitar. That was, and it was all like, it was like a Chinese girl, like giving a testimony and then like a Pakistani guy. And I had to do like the accents too. I mean, I didn't have to, but but
you got to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I got to keep it interesting. So like, yeah, that church was rough and like we, like all the other, and we like had to, like, my parents didn't pretend, but like, my parents would use the NIV and in that church, like, he read only out of the King James, like that type of
thing. So there must have been some like pandering going on. Like,
I mean, like, every church kind of has their own thing of how they kind of want you to act. So you gotta ham it up a little.
Trying to get the bag.
Listen, today you're wearing suspenders, okay? Suspenders.
Yeah. So they were like, my parents were like, don't lie. Like, so if someone says, are you King James only? Are you King James only? You don't say yes. However, I'm going to be preaching out of the King James, even though, and if they ask, I'll say that I don't always, but, hopefully they don't. That's everything.
All right. I have one more question too. Do you talk to your parents about like your thoughts on it? Like, do you guys really connect or talk about what your experience was, or does that come up at all?
Not my experience. I mean, we talk about like kind of more where I am now, like because I mean, like for a while I was like, I was like, fuck this, but I feel like it kind of changed for me a little bit. So I went to university in India, actually, for about 5 years. And when I was there, I was kind of like alone. And so I didn't start going back to church, but I did start like during the week, like especially like I used to like go to, because I like going to like Catholic churches and stuff like that, because like they're always open, like not for service, just like to sit there and kind of like, pray. Yeah. But like, and I felt like a sense of peace. And I feel like, but I also feel the same, like I went to visit like in India where the Dalai Lama's temple is, and like I've been to mosques and stuff like that, and I feel like I get a certain amount of peace for that. But and so I'm and so I talk to, so at least like, and so I would say that I'm much more like open to that kind of, I'm not like by any means like evangelical or anything, but and so like we talk about that, and like they're just happy that like I have any spirituality at all, because like, you know, previously I didn't.
Yeah.
So
he's on the right track.
Yeah, exactly. He's just 1 or 2 steps away. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I mean, like I feel like, yeah, where I am now is probably that I actually would like I like going to like Orthodox churches, because they don't actually preach. They just like pray and like read the Bible and stuff like that, and like kind of do like things. And I feel like traditions and like ceremonies and stuff are good for human beings in general. It kind of like grounds you into like kind of like you know, a routine and stuff like that. And like, for sure. Just like, so that's, yeah. So we talk about stuff like that. But yeah. And so they're just happy that like, I'm even interested at all.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool that you are even able to like broach those subjects. What the recurring themes here is the degree to which people can and cannot have reasonable conversation with their parents as they've transitioned into adulthood, and obviously depends on, you know, the approach that like, parents aren't always the easiest.
Nah. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, if you if anyone from any of my parents supporting churches are listening to this, they didn't do anything wrong. Because it was my own thing. Please support them. They're doing a great job. It's just, you know, it wasn't them. It wasn't them.
You were allowed to make your own decisions in life.
Yeah. But, you know, there are, that's the only thing I was a little bit trepidatious to do this. It was like, because like they didn't raise their child right, I can't like support them, you know, that type of thing.
Well, chances are they have 1 or 2, whoever's listening that's upset has 1 or 2 kids that have left the church too, or whether or not they've told them about it.
Yeah. We're talking to you, Kirk Cameron.
Oh, so Kirk Cameron is did you guys ever see The Way of the Master?
I didn't see. No, I know what The Way of the Master is, but I don't think I sat down and watched it.
Like my church did a kind of like a deep series through that. That if you please watch that, please watch that.
That's where that classic banana clip comes
from. Banana thing, yeah.
That's all I know.
No, you thought Kirk Cameron's crazy. The other dude is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what's his name again?
Ray Comfort.
Yeah, that guy's. He's out there.
Behold, the atheist nightmare. It's long, cylindrical, kind of soft. I feel the impulse to stroke it.
with no concept.
I feel like
of
you
the
might
fact...
have watched that once or twice.
He falls asleep to that every night.
Yeah.
It's also funny how he has absolutely zero concept of the idea that banana has not been around since the beginning of time.
No, definitely.
And that it is a genetically modified human invention.
I guarantee you Ray Comfort reads a lot of blogs about lizard people running the government.
I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, Ian, it's been great talking to you, man. I'm glad we got to get together.
Yeah, I had fun talking to you guys too, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next time.